everyone. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Behind the Scenes with Divya, who's co-founder of Byju's. Divya has been a teacher since 21 years old, and she is a dynamic person who has been integral part of Byju's growth and success. Welcome, Divya. Thank you for taking the time to share your learnings and insights with the startup ecosystem.
It's a pleasure to be here, Vani.
Divya, you have been a teacher and now you are co-founder, tech entrepreneur of one of the most tracked companies in EdTech in India. So share with us a little bit about this, what this journey was for you becoming from a teacher to an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so actually I was 21 when I started teaching. I was very young. I still teach today. It was the first role for me. The one that I closely hold to my heart because I think the impact it creates is like none another, like apart from a doctor, right? So being a teacher first, I think has helped me understand the pulse of our students, which in turn, I think has positively influenced, impacted, and also helped shape the product in a way. So it's not just me, all of us at the core team who joined in as teachers first, who were students before that, helped us understand the need that we were trying to solve very, very clearly. And we understood that to really impact the way students learn, we need to start early. We need to enable younger children to become active learners, to make them love learning. And we also realized that children will learn only when they want to learn, not when they have to learn. So if we can create a learning environment, if we can create an experience for them where they like learning, they enjoy learning, then you have them actually coming back to it again and again and again, much like a game that they really like. So that's crucial to bring back the childlike curiosity that eventually gets lost. So we managed to integrate all of these avenues through the right blend of, I think, research pedagogy, and we also leverage technology to enable access. To allow personalization, to also create an enjoyable learning experience for every child. So through movie-like videos, through gamified content, and also to solve access at scale, the smartphones really helped. 70% of our youth have access to a smartphone. So I think it's very important that we were able to be brave enough to constantly disrupt ourselves. Prior to 2015, we were 100% services, 100% offline. Today we are 100% product, we're 100% offline. So while we've been fixed on our mission of making children love learning, we've been flexible on its execution. So I think that's been really important. Also, technology can really solve access. We've seen that, we've used that as an enabler because as you go younger, you see that students are more and more digital natives. They're learning from a screen is almost native. It's almost intuitive to them. They learn their first numbers, everything from that. So I think, the whole idea is be a content company at core, being an education company at core, but using technology as an enabler is what worked for us. Today, we have 60 million students learning with us across the country. But I think what's important to note is we are actually at a tipping point in education today because of the pandemic, as unfortunate as it is. We got 40 million new students on our platform in the first 4 years and 20 million in the last 4 months. So I think that actually shows the kind of increased adoption, a paradigm shift in the way all stakeholders in education, be it parents, be it children, be it teachers, be it institutions, are all warming up to online learning, understanding the impact of online learning in our country. And I think I'm, very fortunate to be part of a segment which is of so much positive relevance in times like these.
And Divya, with that massive scale that you have seen, right? What can you share in terms of advice and ideas with others on customer retention?
So I think brand advocacy is the most important thing. We've always been on the side of the students. So whatever we've always done in a way that the end consumer enjoys doing it. And see, EdTech is actually, there is no playbook for success. It's a new segment. In a way, we're creating our own path. And our approach has always been based on first principles, especially since this was a relatively non-existent segment a couple of years ago. And what is happening to education today and EdTech today is something which did not happen in decades, is actually happening in months and weeks. So I think we've been constantly innovating. like I mentioned before, going, being brave enough to go from disrupting yourself, becoming a completely different model positively, making it even better. So for us at Byju's, I think it's been a clear case of passion intersecting with need. We wanted to address a core need in society. We had our directions set right, we were flexible in execution. So the foundation of the brand, I think, exists on the fact and rests on the fact, like you rightly said, that our students love us. So while we are profitable and we are valued, and probably some people call us the world's most valuable edtech company and all of that, but the two numbers that we closely really track are the time a student spends on the app and the renewals, because one shows engagement, which is about 71 minutes per session, which went up to 100 minutes during the lockdown. And the second, which is renewals, is we are at 85% annual renewal. So that really shows the effectiveness. Otherwise, they won't go for it again and again and again. So I think being very focused on your end consumer, having students on your side, making sure that they love what you give them, and tracking the numbers that really matter, which is retention, like you rightly said, and renewal. These two things, I think, are what have helped us.
And then, how do you go about building a team when, tomorrow is such a different company than what it is today?
Yeah, I think the team is really one of the most important components of any strong company. In fact, so the core team at Byju's has been very organically built into the system for over a decade. So the first 8 to 10 people were all students of Byju's, and we are all here even today. So I think having a team that truly feels, understands the brand is an intangible ingredient for success. And if you get the formula right on the top, right, in the top management, it trickles down to every level at ease. So, and what we always say is, it's easy to start a mission-driven company, but it's very hard to stay mission-driven. So the single core purpose, make students love learning, unified all our teams by a common thread, motivated them, go ahead, put your best step forward. And I think what makes the team stay focused at all time is the realization that they're creating an impact, right? Education is something that is close to all of us. It's in fact the only way for most of us to make it big in life. Now, skills can be taught, but the kind of drive and the passion to make a difference in the sector is what we predominantly look for, and that's easy to achieve in education. So I'll give you an example, because we're all in the COVID times. Our operations during the COVID-19 pandemic kind of indicates a kind of unified drive we all possessed as a team, with millions of students. As per UNESCO reports, 1.3 billion students were out of school, right? They've been impacted across the globe because of the temporary closure of schools. So our teams, despite working from home for the first time ever, worked harder than ever before to kind of, make sure that learning is seamless for kids. We constantly disrupted ourselves. We made our classes completely free. We witnessed massive surge in the adoption of our learning programs. So like I told you, we saw 20 million new students just in the last 4 months. Everybody worked harder than ever to meet the demand and ensure that students receive the highest quality of learning. So we had planned a lot of launches later this year, like live classes and all of that, but we accelerated the launch because what students were missing was the kind of regularity that a school gives, where you go at a stipulated time, you miss learning from teachers, especially during times like this. So we launched the live classes in a matter of weeks, and the teams turned it around in no time at all. So and we also launched in various vernacular languages so that we could go deeper into the country. That's always been priority for us. We also launched additional subjects like social studies and all of that. So I think that is the thing, right? Managing to accomplish all of this, even though your teams are working remotely, away, but also together, I think shows the dedication and love everybody has for the job that they do.
Earlier, Divya, you talked about brand advocacy. Can you demystify, unpack what is brand advocacy?
I think the foundation that the brand, the future of the brand depends on the fact that children love us. So I think our word of mouth popularity has been the biggest differentiator. This is all because the product has genuinely managed to solve a problem in the lives of students. So I think the focus therefore is to be continuously ensuring that you're able to deliver a product of exceptional quality and service. So I think that's basically what I meant by brand advocacy, brand love. I mean, even like it was an external study, but I think what we were very happy to see was the kind of, so we had tracked our paid user NPS. It was at 76. So I think, we were all so happy to see that, because we feel that these are the numbers which really drive us every day. When a student says that, maybe a student who's living in Kashmir who called us one day and affected by school closures well before COVID is able to continue learning, because of us. A girl in Keshore, Gujarat, who's unable to go to school because of safety reasons, is able to continue learning from home because of us. When her mother calls and tells you that, if I had a product like this and I would have been something else in life, I think these are the kind of little steps, but which comes together, it creates a bigger impact. That's what I mean by brand love and brand advocacy.
That's beautiful. And clearly we talked about teams, and follow on to that is, what is a leadership trait that you really value in others, and what is a leadership trait founders need to have?
So especially startups then, right? If you're talking about, I think the most important would be resilience. I think because there are so many challenges that will be thrown your way, ups and downs that will be hurled at you. I mean, we all read about the big wins. Nobody writes about the little losses, but it's important that those little failures are there so that you fail fast and you win big. And I think this is important because when you and I think resilience is so important, because when you hit a roadblock, you don't give up. You persist. You be at it till you get it, right? So that's one. And I would also say that, when you're an early stage founder, when you're a founder, along with any purpose driven organization, teamwork, I think, is the organization's backbone. So creating a spirit of intrapreneurship, so that people are willing to try new things, be brave, learn from mistakes. And I think it's about building that sense of ownership in more and more people in your team, so that they're all ready to come and take this company to be their own.
Yeah, you're co-founder of a large company, that too with your husband, and most of the time it's really difficult to make that work. But you both have done this so successfully. So what is it? How does it work? Would you recommend this to others? What's easy? What's hard?
So I think the most important thing is mutual respect. We have a lot of it for each other. That being said, I think opposites attract is a notion that is promoted a lot in movies and on screen. But in real life, I think having like-minded people, both in your team as well as in your life, is a great asset. So I think this is one of the reasons why we work so well together. We're driven by the same goal, the same passion to impact the lives of students around the world. And apart from work, our entire universe is centered around our son. So I think, when you have your missions aligned, your goals aligned, your passions aligned, it just works out.
But how can we bring more women into leadership roles in our startup ecosystem?
So I think actually the whole concept of having diversity in an organization is no more a feminist notion. It's a corporate agenda. And I think a lot of organizations are cognizant of this. They're trying to build more women into leadership roles. Especially why I say so much about leadership roles is I believe that we don't have enough women mentors out there. Mm-hmm. So, when in media or anywhere, when we talk, so many more women see us and they say, hey, even I can do this. Because if you look at the statistics, half of the women leave during mid-30s. That's where I am right now. And even though, say 25% of them join back, I think another 40% leave within 3 months. So it's just that, they probably don't have enough motivation to keep them going. So I think having enough women mentors out there in top roles really helps. And that's a dual advantage, because one, you inspire more people. And I think two, within the role itself, there are enough studies which show that women or tend to surround themselves with more women. So it's called the queen bee myth. I've read about it. And it says that, you're more likely to hire women in other leadership roles to support you if you're a woman leader yourself. So that is something I think and if you take care of this beginning on, right? Because this is not a problem a startup should solve later after 4 years, 5 years, when diversity is an issue and you have very skewed ratios. I think this, if it's looked upon during inception, if you have a good healthy representation of women in the leadership, in your board, in your top management, it becomes much easier to get the ball of diversity rolling throughout your organization. So I think that's very, very important. Apart from that, I think the mentors, even at home, be it your mother, your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your sister, every other woman around you is a mentor to you. So I think the kind of mentorship which comes from them, the support they give you, and all the men too, because nothing can be ever achieved alone. And a woman's confidence comes so much from her as it comes from the people who influence her. So she believes that she can do it. It's because there are so many other people who believe in her. So I think it's a combination of both work as well as home.
The pandemic, the pressures, the stress that's out there. How do you see India opportunity for startups, despite obviously the economic downturn and all of that?
So if you actually think about it, startups launched during a downturn tend to be far more durable and resilient than those which have started in a better economic state. I mean, if you look at the previous financial crisis as well, since every crisis creates so many challenges, and there are enough problems to be solved and enough opportunities and scope for new ideas. So just to give you an example, right, there were more than 50 unicorns created globally immediately after the last financial crisis. And if I talk about EdTech itself, there is so much to do, especially because I think, the kind of awareness which the pandemic has created, as unfortunate as the situation has been, has put EdTech in the spotlight. There is so much scope for us to change the way in which students learn, the way in which make it easier for teachers to teach, help schools come online, because the future of learning today, and I'm talking about EdTech because that's the segment I'm from, I think the future of learning is neither going to be 100% online. It's neither going to be 100% offline. It's going to be blended. So there is so much scope to make the entire experience better. There's place for so many people to come in and create an impact, because there is a paradigm shift in the mindset of all the stakeholders. So I think there is no better time than now. If you really want to do something, if you're very passionate about what you want to do, I think this is the right time to do it, because like I said before, a business cannot be driven just by the passion to make money. The passion to change society is far more important, and any idea will work if you're addressing a need. And especially if you're a tech company, you can solve any problem at scale. So I think that's what I would like to say about anybody who wants to start a company right now, because I think this is the right time to start, because there's so many problems to solve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Divya, for joining us today on this episode.
Thank you so much, Vani. It was a pleasure talking to you.